This is Ideal Health Solutions, the podcast with Dr. Timothy L. Brown.
All right, welcome to Ideal Health Solutions, the podcast where we explore the real stories, strategies, and solutions shaping healthcare leadership, personal growth, and professional transformation. I'm your host, Dr. Timothy Brown, and today's conversation is all about the power of the pivot. You know, life has ways of surprising us. One day, everything seems stable, the job, the title, the routine, and then suddenly it's gone. But what happens if that disruption isn't an ending, but an opportunity? In today's episode, Navigating the Career Pivot, Turning the Unexpected into Opportunity, we're diving deep into how setbacks can spark reinvention, resilience, and purpose. No matter where you are in your career, this conversation will challenge you on how to think about success, risk, and what it means to truly bet on yourself. And to help us unpack it all, I'm joined by someone who's lived it and is now helping others do the same. My guest today is Dennis Geelen, a man who knows firsthand what it means to transform a setback into a success story. After spending over 20 years in corporate leadership across multiple industries, Dennis found himself laid off at the age of 43 for the very first time. Instead of letting that moment define him, he decided to bet on himself. Since then, Dennis has built a successful consulting practice, Zero In, helping organizations become more customer-centric and innovative. He's the author of 4 business books, including the bestseller, The Zero In Formula and The Accidental Solopreneur, with 5 released online courses, host of the Happy Accidents newsletter and podcast, and a following of more than 20,000 professionals on LinkedIn. Let's welcome Dennis Geelen. All right, welcome, Dennis. It's such a pleasure to have you on. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you because I know that when we've had chats in the past, you have really inspired me and just really changed my perspective on how to look at what we would consider a career pivot, or for some people, one of the worst conversations or days of their lives. So I'm really ready to just dive into this conversation and learn from you. How did you make that overall shift? So if you don't mind, we're going to just jump right in. I want you to take us back to that moment. You're 43, you're newly laid off after 2 decades in leadership. What went through your mind and how did you begin to process what came next?
Yeah, it was definitely came out of left field. I like to describe it as in the moment, I felt like the Thanksgiving turkey. So if you imagine the life of the turkey before Thanksgiving, you know, every day, everything seems fine. They get up, they peck around the yard, they do their thing. Hey, the sun comes up every day. This is the routine. I go to sleep at night. Life is good. I'm warm. They get lulled into this sense of this is the routine, this is the comfort, and this is the security. Mm-hmm. Until the day before Thanksgiving comes around. And then all of a sudden, life is suddenly altered drastically. And what they thought was comfort, what they thought was routine, was nothing but, right?
Absolutely.
And here I had to take a step back and go, man, I was the Thanksgiving turkey.
Wow.
I thought this was, comfortable. I thought this was safe. I thought this was routine. And then you learn, from out of left field, the rug can get pulled out from underneath you. And all of a sudden that comfort, that security, that safety, that routine is all gone in an instant. So it was a light bulb moment for me that, my first instinct was, well, I'll just jump right back in. I'll get another corporate job. Hey, I got a severance package here. That's great. I'll bank that money. I've got some extra savings. Life is great. And then I'm like, but wait a second. What's stopping that from happening again?
Absolutely.
Shouldn't I learn from this experience? I don't want to be the Thanksgiving turkey 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. There's an opportunity here. And that was kind of a mindset shift for me after that.
Absolutely. And I think often when people experience something as major as that career pivot, maybe it's a layoff, maybe there's a reduction in workforce, the first instinct is to just jump back into the workforce, get on LinkedIn, try to find the next role, put your resume out. And I want you to talk about that overall, that spot.
Yeah.
I know you said you did it, but when did that shift come to say, well, wait a minute, this might not be the right
Yeah.
transition for me?
And we should probably preface this by saying it really depends on your situation too. Like
Absolutely.
where I was at, my wife and I were in a good financial position.
Mhm.
The kids have grown to a point where, it's not like everything depended on my shoulders, and we weren't in the thick of having to pay off a bunch of bills and stuff like that. So I was in a position where, hey, I could bet on myself. Not everybody's in that position. If your kids are younger, you've got a bunch of loans and mortgages and debts you got to pay, and you might have to just jump back in. You don't have the luxury of being able to stop and build something. I was in a position where I could. But having said that, the lure of just jumping back in and getting another corporate job was still strong because it's comfortable.
It is.
It's perceived safe. It's what you know. It's a routine you've been doing for 20 some years. Getting up and punching the clock and doing the 9 to 5 at a company that's what I know. That's my life. So I'll just take that comfortable route and do that again. To answer your question, what was the real shift? It was probably a conversation I had with my wife where I had kind of had that itch probably for a few years, 2 or 3 years leading up to me being laid off. I had started to kind of ask, is this it? Like, is this my lot in life, or was I meant for more?
That's good.
Have I reached my potential, or have I just kind of settled? I felt like the challenge was gone. I felt like there was more I could be doing. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what that meant. I started thinking about what would it be like to be a consultant, be on the other side of the table. I had been in leadership roles for several years where we would bring in consultants to help with our strategy or to help with some brainstorming or to help with some processes or whatever. And I always thought, like, boy, being on the other side of that table seems so cool because everybody hangs off your every word. Everything you say is like gold. And I could be like, I said the same thing in a meeting last week and nobody paid attention. The consultant comes in and says it, and it's like, oh, write that down, right?
Yeah.
So, man, I started thinking, what would it be like to be on the other side? And I had those conversations with my wife. And after the layoff, I was talking to her about, there's an opportunity here for me to just jump back in, get another job, and look we can bank that severance package. And she says, yeah, you could. Or maybe it's an opportunity for you to do something different. You've been talking, Dennis, about what would it be like to bet on yourself? What would it be like to be that consultant? Why don't you take this time and try it? Instead of using the severance package as an investment, use it as a runway. And we're fine financially. If you want to do that, she said, but if you do, I want you to promise me you give it a full year.
That's good.
And the reasoning was, if I quit after 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, and just go back and get another corporate job, she was saying you would always have that thought in your mind, what if? What if I actually had given it a full chance? What would that have been like? And she's like, Dennis, I don't want you to have that regret. I don't want you to have those questions. So give it a full year. And after a year, if you decide, no, this isn't for me, no, this isn't working, no, I don't like this, I'm not enjoying it, then you can say, okay, I gave it a full shot, and you won't ever have that regret of what if. But if it works, boy, you'll be so glad you actually gave it the chance it needed. And that was 7 years ago. So wow. I'm glad I listened to her. I'm glad she put that bug in my ear, and I'm glad she gave me the support and the motivation I needed. And I'm very thankful that I was in a position where I could do that. And I know not everybody is in that position.
You mentioned something. I really appreciate you sharing that portion of your story, but you mentioned two things that I think are very pivotal in the event that something like this may happen. And number one, I think the biggest thing is prepare in advance. because you never know when a pivot will come. You never know when a layoff will come in such unstable times that we're currently in. I love how you said we were financially set, which means that there was some preparation prior to this event happening, whether that was having a savings plan,
Yeah.
and building out some type of prep so that you have enough finances to cover. Now, like you said, not everyone is able to do that, and we totally understand. However, what I always tell all of my mentees when I'm working with them is that prepare as if there is some major event coming, so that if that does happen, my father used to say, prepare for the rain to come. If that does happen, you're not caught off guard. You're not completely just standing in the rain getting wet. You have an umbrella that would at least allow you to be able to move forward. So
100%.
I think that's very smart. And then the second thing I want to talk about is you mentioned that support. Your wife being that for you. Talk about that a little bit. How important is it to have that support that can help encourage you make those leap of faith, if you want to call it?
Oh, it's massive. And I think a lot of people either don't get started or quit early because they don't have that support, because it is hard. It's hard. When you're in a corporate job, your days and weeks and months are structured. You know what you're doing. My reports are due on these days. Team meetings are on these days. You don't have to plan so much what you have to do. You're fitting in your cog in the wheel, and the plan's already there. Here's your role, here's your responsibilities here. When you're starting on your own, it's a blank slate, which can be a little bit exciting at first. Boy, freedom's mine. But quickly it's like, how should I be filling my days?
So
what should my week look like? All of a sudden, that's all on your shoulders. So a lot of people can't handle that. And they burn out because they go too far in one direction, or they don't know how to handle time, or they're not structured. And I just got to get back. I just want to be a cog in the wheel again, right? So having that support, having somebody that's there reminding you or supporting you or cheering you on when times get tough, you've got somebody to talk to, somebody that's in your corner. It was massive for me. And I feel for the people who don't have that, because it's very easy then to just quit and be a cog in the wheel again.
Which is so true. When you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, you have to build out time management into your schedule. You have to understand where your time is going, where your finances are going, because it is now all on you. There's safety, as you mentioned earlier, in having a corporate job or being in corporate America, having that structure, your 401k, all of that's understandable. But if you are ever thrust into a career pivot where there's a transition, like I say, or even a reduction in workforce, it is now on you to make that. Or if you decide to just become your own solopreneur, entrepreneur, it is now on you to build out that schedule. And there is freedom there with reason. Because I also know that, if you're not really good at time management or you struggle in that area, it can really be painful, or you can experience some major growing pains as you're building out your career.
Yeah, you had mentioned having that umbrella, having some money set aside. That is massive. The other side of that, for me, yes, I had that. What I didn't have was any experience at all in this. So the other thing I also like to advise people is try something on the side first. In my case, I wish I had a lot more experience in things like branding, marketing, building an audience, sales. I didn't have any of that. I wasn't planning on doing this. I was laid off, and then boom, I decided to do this. If you're thinking about this, yes, save up a cushion, save up a runway financially, because you don't know how long it's going to take for you to be able to replace that corporate salary that you have. But don't underestimate the amount of learning that is going to be involved, the amount of work that's going to be involved to build your brand, to market whatever it is you're selling, to learn how to sell it, learn how to deliver it. There's a huge learning curve. So get ahead of that. Start something on the side. So you learn a lot of those things, a lot of those principles ahead of time, and you're not having to start from scratch. So now if you've got the financial cushion and you've got some experience on how to build and sell and market things, now you can make that transition much easier when you go to do that.
That is so good. I mean, that is a perfect point to understand. You have to have that knowledge. And if you don't, there are plenty of ways for you to get that knowledge. I mean, if you are good at Googling, or if you can just get on a computer and start to research, this is a great moment for you to just learn all you can. You're not going to do it
Yeah.
right the first time or the second time or the seventh time. It's okay. However, the most important goal is to continue to fall and get back up. And as you get back up, you gain a little more confidence to
Yeah.
build as you're pushing forward. All right, so I want to talk now about the mindset. You talk about this as well in your book. So, what inner shifts were necessary for you to move from fear to focus? Because I don't think we really addressed the real issue of this. It's scary to be out here as a solopreneur, as an entrepreneur in a world of other entrepreneurs in this huge, massive industry in a pool of other experts. How did you shift from fear to focus as you were making
Yeah.
the transition?
Great question. This is another very difficult hurdle to overcome, and some people never overcome this hurdle.
Mhm.
And let's be honest, right off the bat, not everybody is cut out for this. Not everybody has the risk tolerance. Not everybody has the mindset. Not everybody's built to be an entrepreneur. They're much better suited as an employee, and that's perfectly fine. We're not saying everybody needs to do this, but if you are going to do it, understand some mindset shifts are going to happen. And a few that really stuck out for me. One was reminding myself anybody that has made themselves successful at this started somewhere and started at nothing.
That's good.
So it's okay. It's you easily get caught up in this comparison game. You go on social media, whether people are being truthful or not is one thing, but you start to compare yourself. Oh my goodness, that person has built their business up to this. This person's making X amount a month, or so they say. This person has, this success that they're seeing. Okay, but that's maybe their day 400. You're at day one. Don't compare. They were at day one time. They were in your
So true.
shoes. So you're on that path. Remind yourself, Jeff Bezos started somewhere. Elon Musk started somewhere. The Simon Sinek started somewhere.
So true.
Start where you are and stop comparing. Another big mindset shift, and this is another tough one to get over, is the whole instant gratification thing. And this is tough. I mean, with social media, the microwave, we're just used to getting things quickly, right? So
true.
we're in this mindset of, okay, I need to get my first client by tomorrow. I need to make my sales by next week. I need to slow down. This is why a cushion is important. Rather than instant gratification, which is never going to lead you in the right direction. It's going to lead you to cut corners. It's going to lead you to try and do hacks. It's going to lead you to try and, chase money instead of chase longevity. Instead of instant gratification, you want to, as much as you can, train your mindset for delayed gratification. I want to plant the seeds. I want to do the things today properly that are going to reap a harvest a year from now. And that can be tough. But if we've learned anything through, all kinds of different research, look at the marshmallow test that they did with, those kids back in whatever it was, the 60s or 70s. They put if you're not familiar, audience, they got these kids in a room and they put a marshmallow in front of them and said, okay, we're going to leave the room. Don't eat the marshmallow. If you don't eat the marshmallow, when we come back, we'll give you a second marshmallow. If you eat the marshmallow now, it's gone. And they watched these kids. And the kids, some of them were tempted, but didn't eat the marshmallow. Some of them couldn't wait 5 seconds. After the person left the room, the marshmallow's gone. And then they followed those kids for like the next 20 years of their lives to kind of see how did their lives play out. And what they found was the kids that displayed delayed gratification, they knew that if I just waited 5 more minutes, I'll get a second marshmallow and now I'll have 2. Those kids that displayed that delayed gratification went on to have better grades, better relationships, better jobs. And they deduced from that, boy, if you are a victim of instant gratification, I can't wait, I just need to get my fix now, you're never going to really get ahead in life in all those different areas.
Wow.
If you can display delayed gratification, you're going to be much more successful. So back to our conversation about starting out as an entrepreneur or solopreneur, having that delayed gratification mindset. No, I'm not going to just chase a client that I know is not going to be good for me. No, I'm not going to, use this salesy hack to try and make as many sales as I can. I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to build my business on proper foundation, on proper values, on proper marketing, and it is going to pay off in the long run.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that information. I mean, it really is about understanding that mental. If you can get past that, or if you can at least start to build a stronger mindset set of delayed gratification, knowing how to kind of build yourself up if you fail, or if you have to make that shift in focus, you can actually do this. And like you said, it did not necessarily become an entrepreneur, but sometimes it is just making the shift of maybe a career change, of stepping out to move forward, go for that promotion across the board for yourself. So I appreciate you for sharing that information around that mindset. I want to shift gears with you a little bit and talk about your books. You've written many books, you've built successful platforms, and you've coached entrepreneurs. What advice do you have for someone considering their own next chapter?
Yeah, books have been huge for me. When I first was laid off, I started up eventually my consulting company, Zero In. That's a business to business consulting. I was coming in, helping companies with strategy, with innovation, with customer experience, so on. And what I found was, I was one in a sea of many. So first thing I had to do was, I need to come up with my own proprietary process or framework or whatever. What is it that is different about me and how I do it? If I just bill myself as a strategy consultant, okay, well, there's a million of strategy consultants out there. I needed to come up with my own proprietary. So I came up with the Zero In formula. This is a formula for how to make your company more customer centric and innovative. And here's the steps. Here's the process. I did it with a bunch of companies. I got a bunch of testimonials. It was working. The framework was validated. What I found then was, boy, if you could have that in a book, having a book behind your name that's got your proprietary framework in it just takes it to that next level. You're now solidifying your credentials or your credibility. Oh, you wrote the book on that, right? And a book just opens up so many new avenues. Well, there's a revenue stream there now. People can just buy the book and you're making money off that. It introduces people to you. So I've had all kinds of people read my books and then reach out to book me for coaching or consulting because they've spent hours with you almost literally by reading your book. They're hearing your voice. You're earning their trust. And it's something you can give away. Like when I do keynote speeches or when I do workshops, I'll hand out my book just to kind of keep me fresh in their mind. So it's a great credibility builder and an extra tool. And if you do a great job of marketing, it could be another revenue stream. So my advice to people first is find your proprietary process or framework or methodology. Don't just if you're going the coaching or consulting route, don't just say I'm a coach or consultant. Here's my framework, right? I've when I coach entrepreneurs, I've got the Accidental Solopreneur and the Solopreneur playbook that I sell people on. You're not just getting coaching with me; you're getting coached on the Solopreneur playbook. Absolutely. On the Zero In side, I'm coaching on the Zero In formula. I'm currently working on a new leadership framework that I have designed. It's called the Motivated Employee. I've got a webinar coming out where I'll be validating that and pre-selling some workshops. And then if that goes well, that'll be my next book. And so that's kind of my way of thinking. Proprietary process or framework, validate it with coaching or consulting or workshops or webinars. Once you've got it perfected, turn it into a book and then take it again from there. So that has worked well for me. It also gets you on lots of podcasts, right? Hey, I'm getting the
So
author of this book
true.
on a podcast. Here we are today,
Absolutely.
right? So
Absolutely.
just so many new avenues that opens up when you have your own proprietary framework and put it into a book.
That's good. And I want to kind of briefly mention just a few sections of your book. There's themes like do the research and the known, careers beyond the known. What concepts or steps do you suggest listeners take to explore those new paths safely without burning bridges?
Yeah, starting on the side is huge.
Hmm.
If you're already working and you're working, and maybe you like your job and you've got a good relationship with let them know, hey, I'm just
Yeah.
doing this thing on the side, evenings, weekends, whatever. It's not going to interrupt with my work, just so they don't find out, and now they're like, what, you've been doing this behind our back. What's your intentions here? Make your
Hmm.
intentions known. Hey, I'm trying this out. I want to learn a little more. I want to grow myself. And there's some interests I have outside of this job. And maybe it never goes any farther and it's just a side hustle. Great. But be above board with it if you can, if you've got a good relationship there. You are going to learn a ton. You're going to learn so much about sales and marketing and branding and delivering and all that kind of stuff. So the more you can invest in yourself personally, in your personal growth and your personal development, and if your current employer is aware of that and they're on board with that, do that as far as you can. And you might decide, you might learn, hey, I actually don't like this.
Yeah.
I'm not cut out for entrepreneur. I don't enjoy this. I don't enjoy having to market and do stuff on social media or whatever path you're going down. And great, you've learned, and then you're never going to have that what if
That's so
question, right?
That's really good. Yeah, it's amazing. When I was thinking about starting the podcast, Ideal Health Solutions, the podcast, I learned the platform from a course that I took at the university that I teach at. Shout out to Capella University. They offer all of the instructors courses on how to build a podcast. So a lot of the tips and tools that I'm using today for the podcast started from me taking that course just about a year ago and
Love it.
them saying, "Hey, now go start a podcast." So
Yeah.
luckily, I was fortunate enough to have an organization that fostered those external explorations that we have, and it allowed us to learn while being within the organizations. And I'm forever grateful for that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then two, just being able to just step out and say, maybe this isn't what I want to do. Maybe this is what I want to do. But having that freedom and flexibility,
Yeah.
if you have that in your organization currently, take advantage of it. There's plenty
Yeah.
of educational dollars that I know hundreds of millions of dollars left on the table each year for educational expenses that uh, it, employees don't use. So I
Yeah.
want to always encourage you, if you get educational dollars, utilize those every year to ensure that you're learning some new skills and you're building your overall portfolio
Yeah.
and your
And if you're
skills.
a leader and you're listening to this podcast, you might be thinking to yourself, but what if we spend all this money and invest in these people and they leave?
Yeah.
And there's that old saying, it goes something like the CFO says to the CEO, well, what if we invest in all of our employees and then they build themselves up and then they leave? And the CEO responds and says, what if we don't invest in them and they
And they
stay?
stay.
Right?
I love it.
As a leader, you cannot expect that all of your employees are just going to stay at your company for the next 50 years, right?
Yeah.
But they're bound to stay longer if they see that you invest in them, and they're going to be better employees because you invest in them. So
You're so true.
change your mindset. I want to be a leader that invests in my people. And if they spread their wings and they grow on to bigger, better things, amazing. You've done a great job as a leader. You've led them there. So don't
Absolutely.
begrudge them personal growth. Don't begrudge them learning. Don't begrudge them outgrowing your company. Much better to invest in them and have them be happy, successful, motivated, efficient, productive employees while they're there than them feel like they're being underprivileged and underserved and then leaving somewhere else. So
That is so true. That fear of leadership that your employee is going to leave. I was always a leader when I was leading in corporate America. I said, hey, I'm going to push all of my employees. I can remember a time, I think I had 9 direct reports, and I think 7 of them were currently in school getting maybe a master's degree or going after their nursing degree. And I was really pushing them. I had one that went after his law degree. He's a very successful lawyer now, and it's just because I wanted to see each of them grow into where they want to go. They didn't want to hold anyone back, and it's because of that that allows each and every one to find their it thing, their niche in their life, and they're able to be successful. So
Yeah.
I employ all leaders. If you have employees that want to learn and grow, foster that learning, foster that growth. They may leave, but they won't go far. They may be able to
Yeah.
transition into areas that can continue to help
Yeah.
others. Now,
And,
the
and as an
podcast.
employee, you're going to appreciate that company a lot more. You're going to appreciate that leader a lot more, and you're probably going to stay a little longer and be a more happy, productive employee because you see, wow, they actually care about me and my personal growth and my personal development.
That's absolutely true. That goes to that employee morale. If you have employees that just don't feel like they're really doing it, talk to them, find out what they're passionate about, and then foster that overall passion within the overall work field. And you'll see a change and transition in how they show up, how they present themselves, how the overall team morale continues to boost forward. That's a major point. Thanks, Dennis, for that. So I have just a few more questions, and I'm going to let you go. I know we've been talking for just over 30 minutes, but I want to ask you a few questions because the podcast is about ideal health solutions, and many of our listeners are in the healthcare industry, and this industry is shifting fast. So, what lessons from your pivot could we apply to navigating maybe disruptions, mergers, or even organizational change?
Yeah, things are changing fast. I mean, even before AI came along in the last few years, technology was changing so rapidly. I think I heard a stat that, the amount of change that we saw in the last 10, 15 years quadruples what we saw in the previous 100 years before that. It's just
Yeah,
changing so fast. So what does that mean? What does that mean for you guys in the health industry? Well, as we talked off the start, we can get lulled into this comfort zone,
that's
right?
true.
I said I felt like the Thanksgiving chicken. We as humans are wired so much for comfort, for routine, that we can naturally rebel against change. It's inevitable. You have to take a step back and say, this is where things are going.
Mhm.
Regardless of whether this is the way we've always done it for the last 10 years, or this is the way that we would like it to happen, the market is going to move in a certain direction. Technology is going to move us in a certain direction. Get on board. In fact, get ahead if you can. Start testing these things out. How can we utilize these things to create a better experience for our clients, for our patients, for our customers? What does that look like? How can we get ahead of that curve and show that, no, we're not resisting this change. We're going to help be a part of it, but in a positive way. So I think if we can have that mindset of change happens, pivots happen, let's get on board and not resist it, we're going to be much better off as an organization, as an industry as a whole.
I totally agree. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned AI because I had my last question was going to be around AI. We know this is the age of AI, and it is here and it's here to stay. I talk to a lot of professors, and we're struggling with trying to figure out how do we incorporate AI without allowing students to overutilize AI. But we know in healthcare, it is here to stay, and some individuals may be worried about their jobs disappearing. And I know that's a real factor because there are jobs that can be replaced with a few of the AR features. From your vantage point, how should people prepare mentally and practically to pivot in this overall changing landscape?
Again, I think we just have to accept that people are going to start utilizing this, so don't rebel against it. Like I myself, I don't use Google anymore for hardly anything. I go straight to Chat GPT. I have a question, I go to Chat GPT, I can have a conversation with it. Now, I could be stuck in my ways and go, no, I'm used to using Google. I'm going to be loyal to Google. I don't care that there's a better, faster, more efficient way to do it. Where's that going to get me?
That's true.
I'm going to be way behind. So
You can be left
I think
behind.
we just have to accept that AI is here and people are using it. People are going to start self-diagnosing through AI. Now, AI is probably going to tell you right off the bat, I'm not a doctor. Please go to your doctor. But here's some symptoms that I'm seeing. Here's some things that I'm. So if we know that that's the way people's minds are going to be working moving forward, if we know that that's going to be there first, accept that. Great.
Mhm.
Now, how do we come alongside them and, enhance it from there beyond AI? What does that look like? How do they get a more human touch above and beyond what they get with AI? How do they get the empathy and the care that AI can't give them? What that is now our role. It's the value add stuff outside of the information that they're getting from AI. It's the human side that we really need to concentrate on. That can't be replaced, but we need to accept that's our role. We're the humans. We're here for the empathy. We're here for the value. We're here for the relationships that AI cannot provide.
Absolutely. That's amazing. We're getting ready to wrap things up. Dennis, this has been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate your thought knowledge and your leadership and just sharing your overall experience. I'll be transparent myself. I too was laid off about 2 years ago, and I had to, it was probably at one of the worst times, and they generally happen at, if you want to call it one of the worst times of your life. My
Mm.
wife was pregnant with our second child. I was literally on the phone with my leader at 3 o'clock, getting ready to go on maternity leave with my wife. 5 o'clock, I got a phone call from the same leader telling me I had been laid off and I needed to turn my laptop in by Friday of that
Wow.
week. So it was I'll be 100% honest. It was devastating. It was frustrating. And oddly, it was freeing at the same time. I love the role. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy the job, enjoy the freedom of the job, enjoy the security of the job. And knowing that we were bringing in our second child, that was where we were pulling over our insurance and all of that information. That was devastating. That was scary. However, like you, we had prepared well in advance. We were financially set. We built out savings plans to ensure that if anything like this were to happen, this was prior to the meltdown, if you want to call it, of 2022 and 2020 and 2022 through COVID and all of that. So we were very well off to prepare ourselves, and if something like this were happening, we would be able to be set. However, I did not know that I was going to be in the loop of trying to find that next role for about 2 years. And
Mm.
I was applying daily. I'm talking hundreds of applications to different organizations, trying to get my name out there, trying to push forward. And it was scary. And I believe there was a moment and I know talking with my wife as well, there was a moment where I had to come to grips with, okay, maybe it's time for me to mentally transition into where I need to go, and start to build out my own entrepreneurship, building out where I wanted to be. Because, like you, Dennis, I would sit in the meetings, I would say say the right thing and be overlooked, and then the consultant would come in and literally repeat the words that I would say, and it was just like, oh, it's gold. We're gonna write this on the board, and this is gonna be the new steps to go forward. And it was discouraging. I'll be 100%
Yeah.
honest. So if you've been in that position, it can be discouraging, and if you have been laid off or had a reduction in workforce, you are not alone. But I just want to ask you this last question, and then we'll end in today's conversation. Looking back, what's been the biggest gift of your career pivot, both personally and professionally?
If I want to get really real here, it really tested me.
Mhm.
And as much as I appreciate and covet the support my wife gave me, it really caused me to go even deeper in my faith.
Absolutely.
I had to really take a leap. I had to do a lot of prayer. I had to put a lot of trust in Jesus that, okay, I'm going to be okay.
Mhm.
He's going to guide me. However this turns out, whatever the result is, he's not going to let me fail completely. My life's not going to go into complete shambles. I'm not going to end up homeless. I'm going to have the faith of a mustard seed here. And as he tells us, you got that, you can move mountains. Well, I'm not looking to move mountains. I'm just looking to try something here. And it just drew me closer and allowed my relationship with Christ to be that much more solidified. And just to see what he's done inside me personally. I'm not even talking business. I'm not talking any of that. Just what he's done for me personally I can see that, yes, he wanted me to go through this. He wanted to challenge me. He wanted me to grow as a man and as a person. And I'm so thankful that that has been a result for me as well.
That is huge. I tell anyone I owe God everything for how He sustained us through this period. It was difficult. There were nights I cried. There were nights I was frustrated. There were nights where I was just like, okay, I want to give up. But He consistently continued to encourage me and show me the way, and He got us through it. And now on the other side, looking back, I'm like, I had a lot more time to spend with my family. I was there for I've been there for every day of my daughter's life, and just being able to just be dad. And that's one of the things I prayed for before we had children. God, I don't want to be the father that's out the house and never being able just to stay with my kids. I'm like soccer dad now. I'm like, take my girls walking every day. My daughter's homeschooled. I'm getting them dressed every morning. I'm here. I'm an active father. And that's something that I really look forward to. And I'm grateful that it didn't come the way that I thought it would, but I'm so grateful that it came the way that God allowed it to happen. So I'm really, that's amazing to see.
Love it.
Well, look, I know I've taken up a lot of your time today, Dennis. This has been amazing. Please share with our audience where they can see you, what's coming up. I know you mentioned this earlier, some of the things that you have coming. How can they get your book? And we'll be giving away a copy of Dennis's book as well, The Accidental Solopreneur, so that you can have a copy of that. If we'll do that through a raffle, so I need you to like, comment, and share. We'll pick a random person from the overall episode as you're listening to the playback, and we'll send you that book. We'll get your information, and we'll send you a copy of that book. But how can they get your book? How can they see you? Where can they get in contact with you, Dennis?
Yeah, probably the easiest is just to go to my personal website. It's just dennisgeelen.me. And that one is more geared towards other solopreneurs. So that's where I talk about my journey of being laid off and what I had to do. I've got all kinds of free articles on there where you can learn about how to get started, everything I've learned about things like branding and marketing and sales and scaling and mindset, a lot of the different stuff we talked on today. You can see my courses, what I offer there for coaching. But then on there, you'll also see a link to my Zero In website, which is Zero In Consulting. And if you're more a business leader and you want to see what I offer there, go to the Zero In Consulting website. Right now, I'm focused on putting together a new leadership framework, I think I mentioned. So another proprietary framework, how to keep your high performers motivated. And it's all about designing, making sure that you've designed a work environment and specifically work for your high performers that keeps them interested, challenged, and motivated. So if they find their work interesting, if they find their work challenging, if they find it rewarding, they're going to stay and they're going to continue to be top performers. So I've got a webinar coming up on that, and then I'll be offering workshops on that. So between those two websites, you can find my books, my courses, and anything else you need to know about me or how to get in touch with me directly. So.
Absolutely. Well, look, like again, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for just being transparent with us. This conversation has been really powerful. I think what resonates most with me is how you turn what could have been a moment of defeat into a blueprint for reinvention. Your story reminds us that the unexpected doesn't have to derail us. It can really redefine us. To everyone listening, if you've ever faced a professional setback, remember there's the same skills that made you successful before can be reimagined for what's next. Don't be afraid to pivot, to experiment, and to start again. Dennis, thank you again for joining us and for the work you're doing to empower others to see opportunity where they once saw obstacles. We appreciate you. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow Ideal Health Solutions, the podcast, wherever you listen. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn for more insights on leadership, health, and transformation. And definitely check out Dennis's book and his Happy Accidents podcast. Links are in the show notes below. Until next time, stay inspired, stay focused, and remember, even in uncertainty, there's opportunity.